Welcome to the International News Channel, News LD. Today we present to you a news entitled,
Corinne Deacon is no longer the coach of the French women's football team. Corinne Deacon, in Milton, Keynes, England, on July 27, 2022. Rue VIEIRA/AP. His reprieve solely lasted 10 days. In the sizzling seat since February 28, Corinne Deacon will no longer sit on the blue bench. 4 years after her quarter-finalist profession in France, the tricolor coach won't play her second World Cup this summertime at the head of the French women's football team. Assembly on Thursday, March 9, the Government Committee, Keynes, of the French Football Federation, FFF, determined to finish the mission of the one whose contract had been prolonged till the summertime of 2024 by President Noël Le Gret, now deposed. The physique adopted the suggestions of the working group, made up of Marc Keller, Aileen VIEIRA, Laura Georges and Jean-Michel Aulas, which had been specifically tasked with engaged on the case of Corinne Deacon. And it was the interim president of the FFF, Philippe Diallo, who made the remaining choice. In its press launch, the FFF makes the discovering of a really important divide with government gamers and a niche with the necessities of the very excessive degree. Former international, Loyola Pale, interviewed by The World, was not confident on Tuesday about the fate of the ex-coach of Clermont in League Two. In the current situation, a few months before a World Cup, it seems difficult for Corinne Deacon to remain at the head of the team. Explained the manager of the women's section of Le Havre. If only there was only one player involved. But as it affects several players who are also of colossal importance. Unsuitable management since the 3 successive warning shots who focused Corinne Deacon. Friday, February 24, the state of affairs had certainly turned into untenable. First to shoot, Captain Wendy Renard publicizes her withdrawal from Les Bleus and her non-participation in the subsequent World Cup, adopted in stride by the 2 PSG strikers Marie-Antoinette Katoto and Keynes Diani. The 3 stars blame their coach for an administration unsuited to the necessities of the excessive degree and the ambitions of a nationwide team. Learn additionally, the destiny of Corinne Deacon at the head of the French women's football team in suspense a bit of over 4 months earlier than the Australian World Cup, July the 20th to August the 20th. These defections then place the FFF in entrance of a dilemma, to separate from Corinne Deacon, however, to create a precedent by giving the impression of having ceded energy to the gamers, or hold it, however, seem insensitive to the claims and the malaise of the footballers. The primary possibility is instantly essential inside the Keynes. However, the physique decides to save lots of time, to comply with the process, to not seem to behave in a rush, and no less than to save lots of appearances. A working group is due to this fact shaped. In current days, the latter has carried out a number of auditions with totally different gamers. And it is not troublesome to guess the content material. On Sunday, throughout the program Telefoot, on TF1, Keynes Diani gave a public overview. We now have reached some extent of no return. I'd say break up. It is vital to easily have one thing new. The ladies cannot take it anymore, even when they do not essentially specific themselves. Particularly since the dialogue has in the meantime by no means resumed between the rebellious and the coach. The French Federation should take steps. We've raised a cry of alarm, she continued. We actually lack professionalism, with a reasonably small workers. It is the coach who decides on her workers. In the press launch this Thursday, the FFF additionally takes care to warn the gamers that the method used to precise their criticisms was no longer acceptable in the future. The physique additionally affords a novelty in the governance of the Blues with the institution of a complementary mission between the Comex and the coach. Late media counterattack. Corinne Deacon was additionally auditioned for 2 hours on Tuesday, March 7. Till now silent, she selected to make her voice heard via a press launch dispatched to Agence France Presse on the eve of the Keynes. However, his media counterattack was most likely too late. In view of the shameful media outburst of current days, I however want to publicly reaffirm that I'm totally decided to hold out my mission and, above all, to deliver honor to France at the subsequent World Cup, she shouted. The boss of the Blue additionally talked about a destabilization operation and a smear marketing campaign that astonishes with its violence and dishonesty. Learn additionally, footballer Amina Diallo indicted for aggravated violence in the case of the assault on her former teammate Keyra Hamraoui may be an oblique allusion to the Aminata Diallo affair. This former PSG participant, near Katoto and Diani, who is accused of having organized the assault on her ex-teammate, the worldwide VIEIRA Hamraoui. Diallo, now a participant for Levante, Spain, is indicted on this case, and due to this fact presumed harmless. Since then, whether or not at PSG or in the France team, relations between Marie-Antoinette Katoto, Khadija Diani and VIEIRA Hamraoui have been strained. The latter's return to choice throughout the Tournoi de France in February, simply earlier than the outbreak of the maelstrom which carried off Corinne Deacon, didn't assist issues. Every single day new crossword puzzles, Sudoku and located phrases. Play, it doesn't take extra for, in the entourage of Deacon, the thesis of a range is put ahead, primarily based on listening to the Judicial Police of Versailles carried out in 2022. The place we hear Diallo threaten the coach throughout a dialogue together with his advisor, Corinne, don't fret, it is deliberate, don't fret, she'll leap too quickly, they will perceive, she has to get out too. Nothing permits for the second to hyperlink the two occasions. Particularly since the Lyons' Wendy Renard, who launched the sling, is a priori overseas to this Parisian context. The query of his succession now that the destiny of Corinne Deacon is determined, the query of her succession arises. And the FFF must act shortly to decide on its alternative. Not like Legret's autocratic process, this choice ought to, based on an inner supply, be taken collectively. Philippe Diallo instructed the particular fee to audition, as quickly as doable, the candidates for the publish and to formulate its suggestions. In a month, Labus play two pleasant matches, in opposition to Colombia, April 7th, and in opposition to Canada, April 11th. In keeping with the supplely acquainted with the matter, many coaches have already superior their pawns. Ex-coach of Lyons and Parisienne, presently in Bordeaux, Patrice Lair has declared himself. The names of Gerard Preach, working at PSG, Sandrine Soubrand, coach of Paris FC, or Sonia Bomporster, coach of all, additionally come again. Similar to that, extra shocking, of a media coach, the coach of Saudi Arabia Hervé Renard. This adventurer of males' football, Morocco, Senegal, Zambia or Ivory Coast, is a variety specialist, winner of 2 African Cups of Nations. Fallout of Argentina, future world champion, throughout his first match in Qatar, in November 2022, with the Saudis, Renard could be all for the journey, based on info from RMC Sport. A selection that might be unifying to create momentum earlier than the World Cup. He is identified for his administration abilities, and it is an important aspect in the administration of a variety, much more in the present context, analyzes Loyola Pale. Associating his specific profile with an assistant who is unskilled in women's football might work, regardless of the turbulence and uncertainties. Loyola Pale hopes that French women's football will come out on prime of this delicate state of affairs. We are able to speak about tight timing in relation to the World Cup, but when one thing have been to occur, it is higher that it's upstream than throughout. Labus could have prevented their Nisna. Anthony Hernandez,